Bitcoin's hard fork has been cancelled, but I believe this is just the start of many more to come. And I'm not talking about the valid kind, I'm talking about the scam and market manipulation type. Hi, I'm Tom from Crypto Gurus, and if you want to learn more, keep watching. As always, I'm going to begin with the contents so you guys know exactly what is coming up in this video. First thing we're going to be talking about, we're going to quickly cover what a hard fork actually is. Then we're going to answer the question, are forked coins really free? I'll tell you what, I'll answer that for you right now. No. That would be creating money out of thin air, which is impossible. If they were free coins, we'd just create a hard fork every single week and we'd all get rich really quickly. It's not possible. It doesn't make sense. I'll be covering that in detail further on. Let's move on for now. Are there scam hard forks to come is number 3. And number 4, we're going to finish with how do we stop the scam hard forks. So let's begin with number 1 with describing what a hard fork actually is. Definition is a permanent divergence from the previous version of the blocks. To simplify this as much as possible, the easiest way I can describe it is basically when the blocks are changed in nature, so the old blocks are no longer compatible with the new blocks. It's kind of like an upgrade, so that you have new blocks and you're left with the old blocks which are no longer able to be added to the chain. I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't, you can easily Google what a hard fork is and get a much better definition than what I've just given you. But let's talk about whether you actually get a second coin always or not. So a lot of people think that with a hard fork, because they've seen Bitcoin Cash, for example, Bitcoin, they've seen Segway 2X was going to make a new coin, they've seen Bitcoin Gold, and they assume that every hard fork means you get a new coin in existence. That's not actually the case. You only get a new coin when 2 sections of the community decide that they want the future plan of their coin to be different, and therefore they have to split into 2 different coins to make this possible. In other words, if everyone is on board with the hard fork, you'll all be committed to the same change, and therefore there won't be the need for a new coin. You'll all still be committed to the original coin. Now let's move on to a very important point that people seem to get wrong all the time, and that's the question of whether you actually get free coins or not in a hard fork. The answer is kind of yes and no. It should be no, but I'll explain why it also kind of is a yes. Basically, it should be a no because a free coin would mean creating money out of thin air. Let's say you've got a coin worth 2,000 and you create a fork that's also worth 1,000. If you hold your $2,000 coin, you then get an extra free coin worth 1,000. You now have $3,000, as does everyone who holds the coin. How is that possible? How have you all just been given an extra $1,000? Now let's say you do it the next week as well, an extra 1,000 and an extra 1,000. Why wouldn't you just carry on forking each week and just give everyone free coins all the time? The answer is that they're not really free. You can't just produce money out of thin air. The formula on the screen should hopefully help explain it a bit better than I'm probably doing at the moment. So we've used Bitcoin as an example in the equation, and it basically says that the price of Bitcoin before the fork would be equal to the price of Bitcoin after plus the forked coin. In other words, the forked coin gets its value from Bitcoin. The price of the forked coin is the same as the value that Bitcoin loses. So I've got a diagram on the next page. Now I'm not the best at drawing, so don't hold it against me, but hopefully this kind of explains it a bit more clear. I've used numbers similar to what we're actually looking at with Segway 2X. So the price of Bitcoin before the fork was 7,500. If the value of a B2X coin was 1,200, then Bitcoin after the fork should lose this much money. Bitcoin should go down 1,200. Now, if you went on the Bitfinex futures market at any time before the fork, you'd actually see that this was the case. These values that I put on the next screen, I'll go back to it quickly. These were roughly the futures market value of Bitcoin after the fork and B2X coins after the fork. Now, if you don't know what a futures market is, it's basically a bet on what the price will be. So the market was basically saying that Bitcoin was going to lose value because the B2X coin was going to take it from Bitcoin. So rather than you actually getting a free coin, you now have the same amount of money, but some of your money has been transferred from your Bitcoin into B2X. You haven't been given a free coin. It no longer sounds so great, does it? The truth that rather than getting a free coin, what actually is happening is some of your existing coin's value is being transferred into a coin which you might not necessarily even want. If anything, when you think about it like that, it's actually a negative. However, I've put at the top yes and no to the answer, because we haven't actually seen this to be the case with our previous forks. Let's take Bitcoin Cash as an example, and I'll try to explain that one for you guys. So the reason that Bitcoin Cash was effectively a free coin and Bitcoin's value didn't go down, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy really. The fact that people think they're getting a free coin rather than the coin's value coming out of Bitcoin means that people aren't expecting the value of Bitcoin to be lower after the fork as it should be, and therefore people aren't selling it as they would if they knew it should decrease in value. Instead, they're holding it thinking they've got the free coin, and because the market is determined by what the buyers and sellers are doing, as I say, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because people think they're getting a free coin, they end up getting one, even though that's not technically possible. If everyone in the market knew that they weren't getting a free coin, people would realize that the price of Bitcoin should go down after the fork, and therefore they would choose to sell it. I actually wonder if the market will get more educated in this sense in the future and whether we'll see this effect occur. Anyway, let's move on to a very important point, which is that I think there could be scam hard forks to come. Now, let me just clarify before I get into this. I'm not talking about Bitcoin Cash style hard forks. Say what you like about Bitcoin Cash, it was not a scam in the slightest. It was exactly as a hard fork should be. There were two sections of the community that disagreed about how to take Bitcoin forwards, so they split so they could each carry out their own vision. I have no problem with this whatsoever. This is exactly how it should be. What I'm talking about is, let's say you have a scammer. Now, there's plenty of scammers in cryptocurrencies, plenty of people who are making ICOs just so they can scam people out of their money. Now, if you're a scammer, if I ask you which of these two routes sounds ideal, which one would you say? Number one, you can create a scam altcoin. However, there are so many ICOs each month that you have so much competition, and the best case scenario, you'll probably raise tens of millions if you do an incredible job marketing, but that's pretty much it. Or you can hard fork Bitcoin and achieve a silly valuation. Let's just look at Bitcoin Gold, for example. When Bitcoin Gold actually came out, at one point it was valued at over $500 a coin, which gave it a market cap of 8 billion. That's more than just about every altcoin in the market, despite the fact that Bitcoin Gold is a piece of garbage. Number one, it was pre-mined. So how that applies here is, let's say you want to create a scam and you create a hard fork of Bitcoin, you can simply pre-mine it and give yourself a bunch of coins. Bearing in mind that Bitcoin Gold is still worth over $100 per coin, you could make a ton of money this way. Let's say you can't even pre-mine it. After all, Bitcoin Gold did get caught out for doing that. Somehow, despite that, they're still worth over $100 a coin, which puts them at nearly $2 billion valuations despite pre-mining it, which just shows you how easy a scam this would be compared to other routes. But let's say you can't even do that. Let's say you just use market manipulation instead. You don't pre-mine it, so all of the free coins that you create in the hard fork go to the Bitcoin holders and not necessarily you. However, in the lead up to every hard fork so far, the market has been so predictable in that it pumps Bitcoin until near the day of the fork, and then the altcoins surge very soon after. So it would be perfectly possible for a scammer to simply decide they want to do a hard fork, get a lot of publicity behind it, buy leveraged Bitcoin just before they announce it, say times 20, times 10, something like that, make ridiculous returns on their money, and then buy the altcoins just before. Maybe they can even just cancel the hard fork and decide on the exact day that they want the altcoins to surge, as we've just seen with Segway 2x. I mean, ask yourself this. Do you think that the guys that cancelled Segway 2x also bought the altcoins just a few hours before they made their announcement, knowing full well that they would surge? And this is just part of the problem. When you can manipulate the market so easily, it's always going to lead to people intentionally doing it so that they can make a ton of money off other people. Now, I'm not necessarily saying the point of Segway 2x and cancelling it was for this purpose, but it does illustrate the point that someone could replicate this scenario very easily, create another hard fork, do the exact same thing, and make a ton of money by just buying Bitcoin at the right time and then buying the alts at the right time. It's pretty easy to call. I think the majority of us saw this happening, but the timing is a difficult thing. If you're the one behind the fork, You know the exact timing. You can cancel it at any time and just make a ton of money. So that brings us on to how do we stop the scam hard forks? The first thing you might ask yourself is, how do we stop hard forks completely? The answer to this is you can't. It's incredibly easy to create a hard fork of an old blockchain. I mean, there's more steps, but it's pretty much just hitting copy and paste of the old blockchain and making your own new one. It's open source and absolutely nobody can stop anyone from doing it. But to be honest, we don't even want to stop anyone from doing it. There are many good hard forks, and the premise of them is very positive. Take Bitcoin Cash as the example I mentioned earlier, where there's two sections of the community that had completely different ideas of how they wanted to take Bitcoin forwards. You can either keep them in one community constantly arguing, or you can allow the Bitcoin Cash community to fork and follow their own vision. Obviously, it's much better to just allow them to pursue what they believe is correct. So we don't want to stop hard forks at all. What we want to do is we want to remove the element of market manipulation, and we can do this through education. Currently, the pattern is so obvious of Bitcoin surging before the fork because everyone wants their free coins, and then the altcoins surging after as all of the money returns back into the altcoins once everyone's got their free coins that they got with Bitcoin. If we were able to remove this incentive of getting a free coin, we would see that Bitcoin wouldn't surge before the fork and the altcoins wouldn't surge after. After all, if you weren't getting a free coin, why would Bitcoin surge in the first place? So as we covered earlier in this video, you're not actually getting a free coin at all. The problem is that because everyone believes they're getting a free coin, we see this such obvious pattern the market manipulators can use in the future, which is why I honestly believe we have to do one key thing, which is to teach other people that you're not getting a free coin in the hard fork. Take away this, and we can take away the market manipulation that will go with hard forks, and therefore there'll be no incentive for scammers to use them. Therefore, if you want to help out, all you have to do is use the formula on the screen and just explain this to people. Post this somewhere and just explain to people they're not getting a free coin with a hard fork. If they understood this, it would solve a lot of problems. We wouldn't have this ridiculous market movements that we've been seeing recently, have a much more logical, rational market, and the threat of market manipulation through hard forks would be far less. So it's a very good thing that everyone could do by just basically sharing this formula and explaining this to one other person and getting them to explain it to someone else too. Right, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you have, remember to like and subscribe. If you have any constructive feedback, I'm relatively new to YouTube, so just throw that in the comments. Let me know if you have a topic that you're interested in me talking about. Other than that, thank you guys for watching, and I will speak to you very shortly.